Hello, thank you for coming. This is Friday. You're still here. Well, how's the event so far? Is good? I hope you enjoy as much as I do. This is the B308, and it's called Becoming the Next Private Cloud Expert in Your Organization. This session is intended to connecting all those dots you have, all right? As we go through this session, you probably see a lot of information that, I know that. That's good, because this is Friday. You finish almost the event. You should see something that's quite familiar after you go through this whole week about system management, about private cloud. And so hopefully this session kind of sum it up for you. And as you go back, you're so excited, you can't wait. You want to implement, you want to become the next private cloud in your expert in your organization. My name is Young Cho, and I pronounce just like young and chosen. My mother skipped the O here, and I don't know why, but that's what it is. This is my personal blog, aka.ms. You're going to see this abbreviation a lot, also known as Microsoft. That's the kind of the short URL we use. And here's my Twitter. You're welcome to follow. I tweet a lot about private cloud. I also talk a lot about IT as a service lately. All right, I'm going to get started. So, cloud. Are you tired of hearing this term? It's almost like we go everywhere, right? Somehow it's going to connect it to cloud, and there's public cloud, private cloud, and something in between. It is very, very important that we are able to articulate what is cloud and quickly hop over, move to the next stage. If we can clearly articulate what is cloud, make everybody on the same page, then we can move to the next stage saying, you know what, is this relevant to me or not, to my business or not? Right? Do we need a cloud or not? That's where the productivity we can start. So what is the essence of cloud? The essence of cloud is in this term, service. We have abused this term so much, we get to a point we don't know what is a service anymore. All right? I want you to take 20 seconds. Think about this term. If you've been asked, what is a service? What is your answer? All right? I want you to think about that, because that is really the key of the entire cloud computing. If you understand what is a service, you can articulate cloud computing very well. The definition has to be surgical, has to be precise, has to be clean. What is a service? Service in the context of cloud computing means capacity on demand. Anytime you see the term service, think about on demand. That is what it's about. Cloud is about transforming your business such that your business can be available on demand. Your business can be delivered as a service. That is what cloud computing is about. So, knowing what is a service, let's get more precise definition of what is cloud. There's a couple of characteristics. First one is self-serving. It has to be self-service. That means don't call anyone. You need to use it, go ahead and use it. And when you finish, it's done. Because if you're going to make it self-servicing, it better be accessible. It needs to have ubiquitous access. It's a self-serving, but it's not accessible. It's ludicrous. These two work together. You're going to make it self-serving. You can access anytime. Well, I better make that, whatever that object you try to access, readily available. Resource pooling. Resource pooling suggests there's a standardization that suggests you can put it in and take it out in a very transparent way. Resource pooling suggests there's automation. Resource pooling telling you that there's a system optimization there. Elasticity. Elasticity means I can grow, or perhaps more significantly, I can shrink based upon demand. The shrinking is very significant because as an IT, we know how to grow. You buy 20 boxes, put it in the closet. Right? When you need it, you hook it up. But the issue is, once you buy it, capital expense. Once you put in production, are you going to take it out when you don't need it, right? Once it's in production, it stays. So the expansion is not that significant, but the shrinking is very significant. Cloud computing needs to have that significance. Finally, consumption-based chargeback model. Actually, the chargeback model, really the essence is you need to have analytics built in. Because if you make it self-serving, you can get to it anywhere. It's always ready for consumption, and it can grow and shrink on demand. You better have some analytics built in such that you know what has been used, when it's used, how it's used, what's the pattern, so you can have good capacity planning. That's your 5 characteristics of cloud computing. There's 3 ways to deliver your service. We heard these terms, SaaS, PaaS, IaaS. We know what is a service. Service means on demand, capacity on demand. So SaaS means software. So software provided as a service, software is available on demand. Software means your application. So your application available on demand, that's SaaS. Platform means runtime. That's your DLL. That's your API. Runtime available on demand. If you have a runtime environment that's available on demand, and you develop your application, deploy it to that runtime environment, because the runtime is available on demand, your application will be delivered as software as a service. That's the power of Windows Azure. IaaS, infrastructure as a service. Infrastructure for IT pro means server. In the context of cloud computing, server, everything is virtualized. So server means virtual machines. IaaS, say, infrastructure available as a service, means you can provision your infrastructure on demand, means you can deploy virtual machine on demand. That's IaaS. There's 3 ways to deploy it. If you say you have a cloud application, it needs to be one of the 3 ways to deploy it. Otherwise, you can call it cloud. That is not the cloud we talk about. The deployment model, there's a public cloud, there's a private cloud. Public cloud say the infrastructure is dedicated for the public to consume. A private cloud is dedicated for a group of people. Not at any time we mention about the hardware ownership. That is not the criteria. So it can be a private cloud, but deploy a third-party vendor, run it at the off-premise equipment. So that's your 532 principle of cloud computing. So we talk about what is the service. With that, this is your cloud computing subject domain. Be very clear on it. For instance, public cloud, SaaS, that's your Hotmail. That's your Office 365. Windows Azure, platform as a service with the VM role, that's infrastructure as a service. Microsoft private cloud solution is specific focus on IaaS, but you'll be surprised because System Center 2012, we can deploy starting with the IaaS and move into PaaS and SaaS. I would like to take credit of all that, but it's actually based upon NIST Special Publication 800-145, the definition of cloud computing, which says there's 5 characteristics, there's 3 deployment methods, but there's 4 deployment model, and they are public cloud, community cloud, private cloud, and hybrid cloud. Right. I think community cloud is a private cloud for that community. So I classify it as a private cloud. Hybrid cloud, many times when we talk about hybrid cloud, we really mean it's a private cloud with some resource deployed to PaaS, public cloud. So it's really not a blending of public cloud and private cloud. I classify it as an extension of private cloud or extension of public cloud. That's why I say there's two deployment model. But it's okay. If it's a Friday, you say, Young, instead of 532, I want 534. That's quite all right. 532 or 534, you need to have one because that's your roadmap. That's your subject domain. When you talk about cloud computing, that's how you navigate through the maze of cloud computing and ask specific question, know the big picture of it. That will get your productivity out. So that's what it is. So we talk about what is service, what is cloud, what is private cloud. Now, specific to private cloud, I get this question all the time. People say, Young, I am running a highly virtualized IT shop. I virtualize everything. Do I still need cloud? I have cloud already. Or do I not? Well, think about this. When you architect a virtualization solution, what's your requirements? Well, or what's your objective? Most time when we talk about virtualization, we mean server virtualization. Although for those you've been in Microsoft school for a while, you know Microsoft envisioned there's really 5 different components, right? Desktop virtualization, application virtualization, user state virtualization, presentation virtualization, and server virtualization. Server virtualization means I want to run multiple server instances on the same hardware. Did any time you talk about resource pooling, or it needs to grow and shrink, or I need to have a self-service model? No. That's why it should be very clear to you that virtualization is not private cloud, because private cloud, out of the 5 essential characteristics, there's 3 that must exhibit in private cloud. And they are resource pooling, again, that's a standardization, optimization, system management, electricity allows you to grow and shrink, and self-servicing model. What's missing too is ubiquitous access and chargeback model. Now, ubiquitous access because it's a private cloud, so maybe you don't want ubiquitous access. I want to make it private. The chargeback model, maybe the political climate does not allow you to do chargeback. That's why it's not here. And also, many times for enterprise to move into cloud computing, to implement private cloud, they transform what they have in place already. So maybe the chargeback model cannot be implemented. That's why for technical architecture, we're not saying that has to be there, but make no mistakes. That means analytics. If you have opportunity, you should architect it in. But the takeaway for this slide is absolutely virtualization is not cloud computing. Virtualization is not private cloud. So that's what it is. Now, why do I care about it? Why do I care about this private cloud business? Why suddenly everybody talk about private cloud? Everybody wants private cloud. And I'm coming to this MMS, and from the beginning to the end, everybody, every session talks about private cloud. Here's the reason why. Out of 7 years research, 15,000, not 15, not 500, 15,000 data points. It's very conclusive evidence that we have is if you're in this maturity model, this is IO model, infrastructure optimization model, there's a very specific criteria behind it, thick, and they have got all kinds of questionnaire, right? Quite frankly, if your shops is like burning file every day, you walk in the shop, server is not printing, network is saturated, everybody wants you and call you, you're in basic. If you have some type of procedure, scripting in place, right? You can kind of fix it in a more standard way. You're in standardized. If you have some type of self-healing monitoring, automatic generated reports, give you insight of what's going on, you're probably in standardized, rationalized. If you set up the infrastructure, you deploy the application, you take 3-month vacation or absence, sabbatical, and you come back, people still love you, and you never get any phone call, you're probably in dynamic. All right? So, Out of 7 years research, 15,000 data points, here's the conclusion we have. We're talking about data center. If you're in BASIC, you spend about $3,000 per server to maintain it, labor cost. If you move to rationalized, it's about 1/3 of it. If you're in BASIC, per full-time employee can manage about 36 servers. This is data center. If you move to rationalize, you can manage about 96. Think about this. If I move from BASIC to rationalize, 2/3 of my IT can focus on other stuff as just to they're trying to put the cable, plot the cable, pull the cable, put the cable, do the image, reformat, plug it in, take it out, right? You have resource to do other more productive, more business-oriented stuff. For deployment, if you're BASIC, you spend about $1,100. If you're in rationalized, you spend like 1/4 of it. This is tremendous increase of efficiency and decrease of TCO if you move from BASIC or standardized into rationalized. And there's many companies have done that. There's a case study in Microsoft.com. You go to Microsoft.com/case studies, one word, you see many companies that has implemented the solution. So what this is about with cloud computing? Well, what happened is we know this. We know if we can move from BASIC to standardized, from standardized to rationalized, we can increase efficiency, we can reduce TCO. However, there isn't a standardized way to do it, a systematic way to do it. The recommendation is this thick. For that particular company, let's do optimization first. That company, let's do virtualization first. This company said, let's standardize our authentication first, right? So people go different route and they get different results. You cannot get a predictability of it until now we have this thing called private cloud. If you implement private cloud, that's a systematic way move you from BASIC into rationalized, and you can increase your efficiency and reduce your TCO. That's why we talk about private cloud, and that's why you're here. That's why you want to be the next private cloud expert in your organization. All right? Now, once you select your implementation method, your delivery method, there's certain preoccupation put in place, right? For cloud, we have SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS, right? And you see all these components. This slide says a lot of stuff. Every these components, they are security opportunity. How do I secure cloud? You can secure networking, secure storage, secure your server, secure your virtualization layer, secure your OS, secure your middleware, secure your API, secure your data, secure application. Every box is a security opportunity. Either you deploy in cloud or you deploy on-premise. Also notice the context of it. So whenever we address cloud, are you a service provider or you're a consumer? Because there's different things you can do. If you select platform as a service, anything above runtime is beyond your control if you're a consumer. Because PaaS provides you a consistent runtime environment, which also means if you do your testing and development in PaaS and you deploy, your production is in PaaS, it guarantees successful deployment. If you put your test environment in Windows Azure and you deploy your production application to Windows Azure, it guarantees a successful deployment. Why? It's the same runtime environment. If you're doing infrastructure as service, anything about virtualization layer, as a consumer, you're responsible for it. Which means you're responsible for OS and above. What that means, Patch Tuesday is still meaningful to you. Notice the lower three layer. When we talk about private cloud, we talk about IaaS. So notice that lower 3 layer, there's a server, storage, and networking. Excuse me. This 3 layer, you want to memorize it. Like 3 meals a day. You wake up in the morning, you set network, storage, and compute, and servers. Compute, network, storage. Compute, network, storage. Compute, network, and storage. Before you go to bed, you say compute, network, storage. If you're not sure where to start, compute, network, storage, pick one. You're sitting in a cloud computing meeting. They ask you, how do we implement? If you're not sure where to start, compute, network, storage, pick one. Because these 3 things form the concept of fabric. In Windows Azure, you hear the fabric. In private cloud, you're going to see the fabric. Fabric means 3 things: compute, network, storage. Building private cloud, a lot of it is about building private cloud fabric. When you buy a machine, a lot of times you specify fabric. Because when you buy a machine, what kind of CPU I don't get? That's compute. That's the server piece. Network comes today's on board, so it's a given. Then I want 250 gig, I want 2 terabytes. That's the storage. When it comes to computing, it's about compute, network, storage. It's about the fabric. A lot of it is about fabric. And that's the 3 resource pool we're talking about in private cloud. Remember that 5 essential characteristics in the middle, there's a resource pooling? That's the resource pool. That's the 3 resource pool in private cloud. It doesn't matter it's a cloud, it's on-premise. It doesn't matter it's a SaaS, PaaS, or IaaS. As far as your user is concerned, it's application and data. And also, these days, users are increasingly unforgiving. You're deploying on-premise, has nothing to do with the cloud, but they expect you to deliver like SaaS. Because when that email is down, you get a call. Well, how come it's down? Well, we need to maintain it. Well, it should be up all the time. It should be available on demand. It should be anywhere, anytime, any device, any network. It's available and accessible. Actually, that's consumerization of IT. So it doesn't matter what you do. It's about application. It's about your data. With that, I'm going to move into VMM 2012, introduce a very important concept. Now, we talk about service. I said service is capacity on demand, right? And actually, in VMM 2012, Virtual Machine Manager 2012, we have an implementation or operational definition. Service means a set of virtual machines that we can identify, configure, manage, deploy as one entity. In other words, this whole set of virtual machine, I can turn it on, shut it down, get rid of it, or put it in place as one entity. That's the concept of service in VMM 2012. With that, because things become very interesting now. All right, I'm showing you a standard 3-tier design. We know that stuff since 80s, right? This is the 3-tier standard design, front end, mid-tier, back end. The front end take the HTTP request as fast as I can, pass it to the mid-tier process, mid-tier know where the back end is, pass it to the back end, get the data back, pass it to the front end, show it to the user. We know this design. Now, when you design these 3 tiers, you may say, you know, the front end, I'm going to have 3 boxes, mid-tier, I have 2, or back end, I have 2. However, you architect this application architecture. With VMM 2012, if I can manage all these machines as a one entity, and I know what are these images I need. I know how to configure these applications. I know the procedure, the ports I need to open. I know the intelligence of it. For instance, when I deploy it out, you know what? Deploying all at the same time. When you want to bring up the service, bring up SQL first, then the mid-tier, and then the front end. I know all that because in order to deploy it, you need to have all the information. Traditionally, how you deploy it, once you finish the design, everybody signs off, you buy the machine. That's like 2 months, right? When you get the machine, you build the image. That's another 3 weeks. Then you ship it to the branch office or ship it to your data center. That's another 1 week. Then you send 2 people on site. right? Standing by. Over the weekend, you turn it on. Monday morning, everybody comes in. Everything breaks, right? And that's like what, 4 months, couple months? You know what I'm talking about. However, if with IaaS, which means I can deploy these virtual machine on demand, and in VMware 2012, I can manage this whole thing as one entity. And if I can capture these critical information, you know what? I can deploy the architecture, followed by configure, install it, everything, and bring up the runtime and run the instance. This line of business application can be deployed as a service. And what is service? On demand. In other words, you need the line of application, hit enter, you get it. With VMware 2012. I can make this line of application available as a service, make it available on demand. That's the power of VMware 2012. How do we do it? Well, here's how you do it. You configure your resource pool. Then you build your architecture, use service template. Service template is an XML file. It captures everything. It captures what I talk about, the content. Where is my VHD? Where is my image? Where is my ISO file? The installation procedure, your script, which port to open, what do first. Put in Server 2000 R2 SP1 first, and then install IIS, right? And reboot, and come back and add this and add that, take this out, add that in. I know all that. Then, with the service template, they reference the 3 resource pool. What is the resource pool? Compute, network storage. That's your fabric. So they are on the private cloud fabric. You build your application architecture, deploy to a private cloud. That's your service. Not only that, once you build the fabric, you can deploy multiple instances in a predictable and consistent way. You can have release 1, release 2, all run on the same infrastructure. The same application running multiple instances, isolated on the same infrastructure. If you are selling this application, you pay me this much, you get Pro Edition. You pay me that much, you get Express Edition. They can deploy all on the same infrastructure. That's the power of VMware 2012 to bring you the service-based deployment. It's about service. It's about the capacity on demand. It's about anytime you need it, I can get it to you. It's about saying yes to your customer. All right? And the magic is really 2 things. One is the service template. The other thing is the fabric concept. It's very important we understand this. The same concept applies to Windows Azure as well. What is a fabric? Fabric is an abstraction indicating the ability to identify and manage an object within the fabric. If you're in the fabric, the data center owner, which in this case is VMware 2012, will be able to identify you and manage you. Will be able to get you and boot you up and load the application or shut it down and get rid of you. That's the power of the fabric. There's a 3 resource pool there. Take a wild guess. Compute, network, storage. That's your 3 resource pool. Actually, in VMware 2012 and in console, you see the term fabric right there. That's your private cloud fabric. Building private cloud, it's about building the private cloud fabric and then bringing your applications. Server means compute. That's your Pixie server, do remote boot, remote management, your VMM, your EXX, your Zen server. That's your execution power. Networking is how you glue them together. Behind the scene, how do I glue these execution power together? And then storage is where you put them. Compute, network storage. Compute, network storage. That's your fabric. Fabric means the ability to identify and manage. If you are in the fabric, VMM will be able to manage you. What about service template? Service template is an XML file. The power of service template is you can define the entire application architecture. In this case, this is a 4-tier application architecture. You define your entire application architecture here. Within individual tier, it's a VM template. It's a virtual machine template. Within the virtual machine template, you define, basically you're building a machine. So it's your compute, network, storage, and more. An application in DVN 2012. We introduced the concept that you can actually configure application, server, FV. You can actually have SQL Server completely defined there. What's the pre-installation procedure? What's the post-installation procedure? And in between, what data package I'm deploying. You define all that in here. It's about your content, your procedure, your operational procedure, and your intelligence, your scalability. Every single thing about deploying this application architecture. That 357 tasks, you can define it in here. Once you're able to define it here, you validate it against the fabric. Once it's validated in the fabric, that means the resources, the operation procedure, the content, everything you said, I validate against the fabric. Yes, I can see this resource. I can have access to this. Once it's validated against the fabric, you can deploy to the fabric, just like that. This whole thing, once validated, all the way down to a mouse click. In other words, you can get to a point that with a mouse click to deploy an application architecture, followed by configuring your application, and then bring up the running instance. In other words, you started with the IaaS to deploy out all these virtual machines. Then you configure its a runtime environment into PaaS. Then finally, you configure your application, get into SaaS. And when your user access to that application, it becomes an XaaS delivery. Isn't that exciting? Are you as excited as I am? All right, let me show you. All right, this is a stock trader. At this time, we are actually in Windows Azure. All right, if you look at the URL, this is cloudapp.net. This is Windows Azure. This is public cloud. This is PaaS. You can access this application right now. Okay? So this is a stock trader deployed to the public cloud, and let me show you, I can log in. This is like your stock trade or things like that, Fidelity, right? And so once I get in, and as a user, if I look at, for instance, look at my accounts, I can look at my portfolio, and let's say I'm going to sell. I'm going to sell this guy, and let's give it an odd number. Let's say I sell 43 shares. I'm going to sell it, right? And if I look at my accounts, right, and this 43 share has just been sold. They are just been sold, right? So this is the application that's currently in the public cloud. Now, as far as the user is concerned, this is just a web application, right? But you and I, we look at it, I said, this is a cloud application. Wait, you hear the term cloud. So what? You hear the term cloud, you need to exhibit the 5 essential characteristics, which are self-serving, ubiquitous access, resource pooling, electricity, chargeback model, right? Self-serving, I have a URL, I go there, you give me an account, I can do the job myself. Ubiquitous access is HTTP session. Resource pooling behind the scene, all this allocation, resource pooling. Electricity, you have 3 people, 300 people, 3,000 people. The technical architecture is designed to handle that. Analytics, because I log in, there's an analytics associated with the user. 3 deliver method, this is in PaaS and public cloud. There's your 532 right there. This is why this is a cloud application. Internet is not cloud. People say internet is cloud. Well, internet is not cloud because if you just say internet is cloud, you only address what? Ubiquitous access. You can get to it, but is your application ready? Just because you can get to that application doesn't mean that application is ready for you. Just because you can get to it doesn't mean 3,000 people get to it. It's designed to handle that, right? So there's many things that you can validate. Is a cloud application or is not a cloud application? Do I need a cloud or do I not need a cloud? Based upon that 532 criteria. Okay, so this is the stock trader in public cloud. Now, I'm going to deploy this to private cloud, the same application, and it's right here. Right? If you look at the URL, wow. All right, it's called itprosrock.com. This is actually a little data center in San Jose, California that we have. Okay. Suddenly I don't see my application. Okay, so this is actually in a private cloud. And just to show real quickly, this is deployed in a managed environment, but it's basically the same application. Okay, I log in, I look at my, account, my portfolio, right? And I'm just going to sell something. Let's say sell 7 share, And so I look at my accounts, and it's been completed, right? And so I think it's here. Is it? No. I can refresh, and it should show me it's been sold. Anyway, so this is in private cloud. So how do I implement it? How was it deployed? Or let me show you this. All right, let me minimize this. And first, let's bring up VMN 2012. This is my admin console. This is what's running in that little data center. All right, what you see here is that service, Stock Trader 5.0. It's currently running in a private cloud called DPE Stock Trader. Within this service, it's a 4-tier. There's a web tier, mid-tier, operation tier, business service layer tier, and a SQL tier. And I can actually see what's running. There's a 2 web application running in the front end. There's a server AppV package deployed in my operational tier. There's another server AppV package deployed in the business service layer. And also for the SQL server, I have a whole bunch of data package deployed. All right, it's running. This is the service view. Remember what's service? Service is a whole set, right? Present one business function. That's a service. So that's a service view, seeing this whole thing that has 4 tier. But if I look at the virtual machine view, at this time, there's a 4 virtual machine deployed, right? And those are the name. So how did I deploy it? I actually deployed through service template. Actually, let me talk about the UI a little bit, so when I'm running around, you know why I go to certain places. If you look at the UI, here, I don't know if you guys run in 2008. I'd run VMN 2008 for quite some time, and I feel like, well, I'm good at it. And then they come up with 2012, and first time when I look at the UI, I said, what? Right? It's quite different than 2008. I look at it, I couldn't figure out why they organized this way. I couldn't find the information I need. For the longest time, I was so confused. I look at this UI, I was just like, there's got to be some reason. So I kept thinking and thinking and thinking. And finally, I got to where, okay, this is why they designed this way. All right. So VM and services, that's the destination of your deployment. If you want to find out where they are, that's the place you go. Fabric is a fabric. Fabric is that abstraction. There's a 3 resource pool in the fabric. There you go. Compute, network, storage. You're getting tired of it, right? Good, because you should. Oh, I know it. Because what? When you're reading document, you can say they talk about compute, and then next time they talk about storage, and then they talk about networking. And you realize that, oh, they talk about fabric. Library. This is your repository. This is all those building blocks you need to compose your virtual machines, your services. It's your service template, your virtual machine template. It is your content, your VHD, your ISO file, your script. Any file-based resources is in library. Library include library server. Library server is just a regular server with network share. Anything you put in that network share become visible within the fabric. That's how you bring stuff in or take stuff out. Jobs, that's the running history. All the tasks that have been running in the system. And finally, setting, that's where you set access control. Once you know how they organize this, it's very easy to find the information you need. Again, this is the destination of your deployment. Fabric, 3 resource pool. Library is your building blocks. Job is the execution history. Setting is where you set the access control. So I want to see what building block I have. So I come to library. Within the library, there's different things here. Right? So when you first build your private cloud fabric, you bring this resource in. For instance, you will bring in your library server. So you will add a library server. So you will come to the library server, right? And then you will start adding library server in. Now, library server, once you add it in, right, you just add a library server, you go through the wizard. Basically, VMware install an agent, and then the agent will report back, and they become part of the fabric. Within individual library server, there's different resources exposed. For this particular one, I have my stock trader packaged here. Now, let me go back a little bit, tell you the kind of the change of the application life cycle here. Previously, we have application team writing an application. At some point in time, they give it to the production, right? So the production operation will just get the box, configure the box, get the box, configure the box, and then install the application, and then ship it to the wherever the branch office or where the data center needs to be, and then bring it online. With the VMware in 2012, we introduced this concept of fabric, of service template. Now there's a new role, servicing. I call it service architect. If you read my blog, you will see I say the rise of service architect. The application, they write the application. They also configure everything, document everything. And there's the operation, IT operation is still the same. They're running the cloud, the production cloud. There's a guy in between that knows both. It has some intimate knowledge of the application, knowing I need a SQL server, I need this data package, I need to open this port, I need to use temp storage, I need to allocate this, and after that, we need to delete that. It knows all this. On the other side, it also needs to, in order to bring in a web server, I need to install server 2000 R2 SPY and then go to server manager, enable IIS, and I need IIS scripting and tools. I need IIS manageability. It knows all that. And by the way, if I need to deploy Hyper-V host, one checkbox is going to need 2 reboots. It needs all this operational stuff. And this guy in between is the person that authored this service template that encapsulate all the content, operation procedure, intelligence, everything in it. This is the guy. I call it service architect. All right? This is kind of a new role. And we believe this is probably between DBA and some senior IT leadership, operational leadership will kind of emerge to this role depending on their negotiation. So this person will kind of architect the service template. So the methodology is the following. The application and the operation and the service architect kind of work together. And finally, when they finish the application, there's the application code and the content, which is like VHD, your ISO file, and service template. That's your package. So once you sign off, that package, you can actually do X copy. So you put it in network shared and operation gets it, or however you want to do it. Put it burn it in the DVD and give it to it. However, basically you deliver that package. And so the operation, the cloud administrator, or the production, they receive this and then put it into Fabric. So how to do it? They just X copy into one of the library server, wherever you want to put it, in the network share, and then you refresh, and it becomes here. That's what we see. That's where we are now. So I have this package come in. The next thing what you need to do is validate that service template against your fabric. Because what happened is, when developer developing this application, for instance, maybe they call the network Redmond. I'm deploying this to, where are we now? Phoenix? No, I'm sorry, Las Vegas. So I'm in Las Vegas. My network is called Las Vegas. So what you need to do is, you bring in the service template and you validate. So, okay, so Redmond in the service template now translate into Las Vegas. That's my network mapping. The service account, they call it cloud admin. Here we call cloud administrator. You map that. So you validate all that setting against your current production environment. Once you validate it in, that's where you see it get listed out, becomes available. That's how I bring these guys in. Once they are in here, the next step is you, and it's really tricky in VMN 2012. You notice it's context sensitive, so the option change. So you would do import template. You go through that validation. Once it's in here, you highlight the service template, and it changed to ribbon. And what you need to do is open the designer. Now, it depends how sophisticated the service template is. This is going to take a while to open it, because the service template, remember, this particular one has 4 tiers. So there's 4 virtual machines. Within the virtual machine, there's tons of configuration. So what it needs is bring in the service template and then query against the SQL to bring back all this configuration and then present it to you. So it's going to take some time. And I have actually something open already. And let me just see if I can get that one. Okay, so I have opened it up already for you. So this is the service template. Okay, within the service template, I have 4 tiers here. Each individual one is a virtual machine template. So what you need to do is, as you validate this, you will highlight it. Let me get the, okay, let's get this. Okay, this is web tier. You highlight it and you right-click, you go to property to bring in the virtual machine template. So here's the configuration, and if you need to change it, or you create a new one, that's how you put it in the configuration. But notice, look at this. Can this be automatically migrated out? This is all cloud. This is all about electricity. It's all about service on demand. If I need to relocate your workload, do you allow me to do so? This machine can be scaled out, scalability. Right? We talk about resource pooling, we talk about electricity. This is cloud everywhere. Right? You can start it with this instance, maximum go to that instance. Your hardware configuration. Can I deploy this to what type of virtualization platform, or all of them? You can have all 3 of them. And in that case, when we deploy, there can be certain virtual machine goes to one platform, others go to the other, and they work together. Right? And there's other setting. This should be very obvious for you guys. OS configuration. Right? You see the pound, it will automatically bump up the number, such that you can make the machine unique in your environment. So you can reuse this source template to deploy, and you won't get it to issue within the same infrastructure. This is new, the application configuration. From here, right, you can add different type of thing. Right? You can add server FV package right here. Server FV is very powerful. Just think about when you deploy server. Now I have server FV package. I can kind of pick and choose. And really, in a very dynamic way, to compose your virtual machine template. Right? And so you can do that. If it's a SQL box, and you're going to see that in a minute. This is how you kind of validate the setting. And let me show you the SQL machine. Oh, well, let's pick, okay, let's show the SQL machine. Right? Let's look at the application configuration. All this SQL package I'm deploying. The service account, the SA, you can all define that. Right? Now, so this is an application architecture. Once I validate this, so what you do is you bring it in, you validate it. When you finish validating and you say you want to configure deployment. So at that time, VMM take the configuration and then go out to validate against the Fabric current runtime environment. You say you need this much CPU. Behind the scene, there's a destination for this service to deploy. Right? Remember, we specified this is Hyper-V, this is ESX, and there's a certain host, the virtualization host associated with it. And do I have that storage, or where are they? Right? And so it go out and validate that. Once it validates that, it will bring back actually okay, here is going to be the runtime information I'm going to use if you have been deployed out. Right? So if you click that, it will go out, validate that, and come back with the actual machine name and all the settings to give you one last chance if you need to validate anything. Right? And there are certain design, for instance, you want right before deployment, you want to put in some information just for, I don't know, for auditing or whatever. Maybe the application needs that, right before deployment. It gives you that opportunity to do that. You can make it require or make it not require. And then you can deploy it out. Right? Once you deploy it out, and this is what you're going to see when you finish deployment. Right? Make no mistakes. It takes time to get to this point. But the important thing is, once it's validated, then the deployment becomes really just like that. About 6 months ago, 4 months ago, no, 6 months ago, I was in a conference, and there's a CIO sitting right next to me, and he's running a company in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's a cosmetic product company. He told me they've been in cloud computing for 5 years. He said, when I'm sitting in a business meeting, my answer is yes. They're opening branch office all over the place. There's a retail store. They opened 30 in South Africa, 20 in Japan. I said, the business owner come here and said, we need 30 instances for this branch office to have whatever the business application. He said, my answer is always yes. Even before you ask for it, I say yes. I just need to make sure I can charge back. Why? Because everything in cloud, it just matter of hitting enter. He said, by the time he finished the meeting, the service has been deployed. If you think about how far we come to this point, the discussion is no longer about, wait, I need 5 servers. I want to make sure I have network bandwidth. No, once you set out the Fabric, it's there. It's just a matter of hitting enter to deploy. You just want to make sure, do I have your chargeback account? And how fast you need it. You need 3. Why don't you take 5? You have 300 users. You know what? If you need 3,000, just come back and tell me. It will be ready for you. That's the change of mentality. That's the change of IT role with cloud computing, with this technology, which is available today. All right? So once you have this is from VMM admin, right? I see everything. I see a whole bunch of cloud. I see the host. I see the Fabric. For your business owner, so what I'm playing here is I am the enterprise architect, or I'm a cloud administrator. So this is the cloud that we have validated, and your application, your HR service, your HR business owner, your line of business application has been validated here. And so I said, based upon our service level agreement, you can now go ahead and deploy. So you set up the self-service user. And then that time, the self-service user, they can use app controller, which is a web interface, which back to what we talk about cloud, ubiquitous access, self-serving. It's everywhere. So you can log in. Currently, I'm still logging in as an administrator, but if you log in as a service owner, you will only see, there's a security trimming, you will only see those services, those cloud, those building blocks you're authorized to see. In this case, I'm currently administrator, so I see everything. This is app controller. I see all the clouds. I also see public cloud. I make a connection to Windows Azure also. And where are my services? I have one service, 2 Azure service and 1 private cloud service. And you highlight it, I actually see what's running in this private cloud. If I have configuration manager and operation manager, other family in the System Standard 2012, I can drill all the way down to see what's in it. I only have VMM, all right? And from here, I can also operate from here. It's just kind of, the rich information is unbelievable. And I'm using a web interface. What are the virtual machines I have? Right? What are the building blocks I have? These are all the virtual machine that's running. What are the building blocks I have? I can define access, right? And let's say service here. So let's say you're the HR. So production tell me my service is ready to deploy, and based upon the service level agreement, I can deploy this many instances or what have you. So the self-service user coming into the app controller and just look at what's available. For instance, in the library, you should be able to see your service template, right? So let's say look at the service template. In my service template, let's say it's a stock trader. Let's say stock trader 1.5. Right-click, deploy. That's it. I deploy my service. I have no interest in knowing how you configure it. I have no interest in knowing how many virtual machines or what have you. I just need my service because Singapore branch office is online. I need people to log their time, build data. I don't care about how you configure it, and I don't need to with this structure. And also notice when you use app controller, when you're coming in, you don't see the fabric. As opposed to you use VMM, if you're allowed to see the fabric, you will see the fabric. With app controller, you don't see the fabric. All right? So you can use this to deploy service. Now, this is pretty powerful already. That this is only half of it. All right. Yeah, this is great. So I can deploy the service. What happens if I need to maintain it? Well, here's what you do. If you have this set up. In VMM, you look at your building blocks. Let's say we're currently running 1.5. All right? So there's a new requirement coming in, and we need to make changes. First, you need to make sure your development have the same environment with you. So you can export the template with content. So you can export the template with all the VHD and image and the procedure, all that you use to deploy to production. You can have all that. Export it, give it to the developer. The developer makes changes, right, and come back with the next release. Okay? And as soon as they test it, they sign off. I'm going to skip all that and just saying, all right, I'm here. I'm just going to make a copy of this, right, to simulate the procedure that we finish changes, and I bring it back, and there's the service template that's been changed, right? I'm just going to make a copy of it. Did I make a copy of it? I'm going to make a copy of it, bring in a new service template, right? And I'm going to make some changes, and then we deploy, see how we can get it updated. All right, so here's a copy, 1.5. The first thing you want to do, you bring in, oops, I'm going to close that here. First I bring it, I'm going to change it. Let's say, I'm going to change this, let's say, to release, let's say, 2.0. How's that? You know, we're going to bring it in, and we're going to roll out 2.0. Right, here, let's say 2.0. All right, I'm going to save it. And this is go through all the validation, you know, the same procedure. So I validate it, I bring in the service template, and next, I'm just going to make some changes to show you, like, okay, developer changed this, I bring in, and here's the change that I need to roll out. And so with this infrastructure, with this methodology, you can actually roll out your changes without any downtime, not just minor changes. You can replace your VHD image using this methodology without downtime. Right? So you upgrade from 2008 R2 to 2008 R2 as P1. You can still have the instance running. At the same time, you change the underlying image. You can do that with this. All right, here 2.0, I'm just going to open the designer and make a quick change. I'm just going to make something very minor, just in the interest of time. For instance, let me just do this. Let's say for the SQL layer. By the way, when we're waiting, Microsoft recommendation is when you deploy even just one tier, even just one single virtual machine, always use service template. Because when you upgrade, you can use service template to have no downtime. Which also means for this particular template, let's say, if I just need to add SQL Server, I can take out all the rest, make it a new template, just leave SQL Server there, and then I can deploy SQL Server all day long. Does that make sense? All right, so for this one, let's make a real quick change. Let's say I change the memory, all right? So rather than 1024, I said 2048. And I'm going to bump this up to 4096. Let's say I change this. Okay? So I make some changes. I could have replaced the VHD from here. I could have replaced that, right? In the interest of time, I'm just going to do something very simple. So once you have this template change, bring it in and validate against your fabric, and it's just a matter of changing the template in your running instance. And you can do it through app controller as well, right? It's just a matter of replacing that, and you will see the instance getting upgraded. And depending on your upgrade domain, which is another concept that we borrow from Windows Azure, you can have no downtime, right? In this case, all right, so I have this server template ready. So if I go to my running instance, I can right-click and say Set Template. I'm going to replace current template. I'm use 2.0. Now, in this case, I will have downtime. Why? Because SQL only have one instance. Oh, in fact, no, because this change won't introduce any downtime. So I'm setting a new template, right? I'm going to let it validate all that. And then at the end of it, it will say, do you want to execute it right now? Or you want to execute it later. So you do have a chance to validate, to put a change in place, but don't roll it out yet until I said so. So you do have that opportunity to do that. All right? So once it's validated, I'm just keep everything the same. All right? So it says, do you want to apply that immediately? All right? And in this case, I'll just say yes, so we can save some time. So this is like how you upgrade your running instance, as opposed to worry about bring it down, bring it up. I was talking about the upgrade domain. If you have multiple instances, let's say your front end, you're running 5 instances. And if you said, I want to have 3 upgrade domain, basically we do 5 divided by 3, right? So the first group will have 2 machines. The second group will have 2 machines, and the last group will have 1 machine. We will dynamically set up the upgrade domain for you. And then when we do upgrade, we do rolling upgrade. So you will have no downtime. All right, this is going to take a while. All right, so while we're waiting for that, how about this? What about the public cloud? Right? Can I do something with the public cloud? Oops, just close it. Okay, next. Finish. All right, if I apply the template, that's when I wrote out the changes. Let me just apply the template. And currently it's 1.5. I'm just going to OK that. All right, and it's about this guy. It's about the SQL tier. It's applying the changes. Okay? So it's basically rolling out the service template. You have running instance right there. You can do that. And you can do this when you replace the base image. It's unthinkable when you can do something like that. All right? So let's see. All right? And let's look at the public cloud. So from here, I'm using app controller, right? So I'm managing my private cloud and my public cloud. And let's look at what's in my public cloud. Here's my public cloud. All right, let me cancel that. If I look at the service there, this is what's running in my public cloud. And in fact, if you log into actual Azure portal, this is my Azure portal. Let me just refresh and make sure. This is what's running there. right? And you see I have a certificate here. I have an ac.itpros.com. That's how I connect through that app controller from here. From here, I can also work on this public cloud. Right? This particular one, I don't think I'm running anything here. Let me see. Okay. So sample with update. Let's do this. So sample with update. This is what's running there. Let's say for this particular instance. I'll look at the properties. I'm currently running in 2 instances. We talk about electricity, right? I could say I want 200. As long as my service level agreement allows me. Right? That's going to take a long time. For the interest of time, I'm just going to make it 3. I'm in app controller with the HTTP session. Okay? And let's go back to this is my Azure portal. And in a minute, it will kick off the job. And it will try to spin up another instance for me. Right? That's how you can manage it. And look at that. I use the same, a single interface, single pane of glass. I manage public cloud, private cloud. Actually, for VMware 2012, you can manage bare metal. I just published a blog. Those of you who are interested in looking at my blog, you manage bare metal. So from bare metal to virtualized resource to private cloud to public cloud, I can manage everything. I can manage all with single interface. That's the power of Citizen Center 2012. All right. Oops. I should go back to this machine. All right. So what's the strategy? So we talk about what is cloud, how I wrote it out, how I manage, how I operate. What's the strategy? Well, there's different things that you need to really be concerned with. If you're a cloud architect, if you're a project lead, you're an IT manager, you're a decision maker, these things you need to focus on. One is authentication, because you want to provide a single sign-on. You notice when I jump around, it never asks me to authenticate again, because behind the scene, there's a certificate, there's a trust relationship, there's a single sign-on experience, right? For those who are in security, you're in heaven. Cloud is your heaven, because this is going big. And the trend is also using some readily available authentication mechanism to federate the identity. For instance, people are talking about using Twitter, using Facebook to authenticate, right? Some of us look, oh, it's pretty scary. But at the same time, you also think about it. That opportunity, what does it represent? In consumerization of IT, you know, every device I welcome. But I'm not going to write the authentication module to different device and everywhere. No, I'm just going to use something that's readily available already. And everybody has a Twitter account or Facebook account. Why not just take advantage of that? And the new generation, they don't care. So for those who are in the security, the federated identity, hot topic. You're in heaven. You're in high demand. You're on high demand, right? Virtualization, need I say more? That's enabled technology. You want to be cloud expert, you better be good on virtualization. Common management platform, single pane of glass to manage, right? I show you System Center Virtual Machine 2012, the key enabling technology for private cloud. These are very important different areas that we need to focus on. If you architect a solution, make sure you address every one of them. Self-service model, that give you a predictable return on investment, because soon, using self-service model in grassroots, champion will develop. In that little branch office, there's going to be some guy or gal become the local champion. We'll do the local IT support voluntarily, believe it or not, right? Self-service model is a key component in cloud computing. This is why it's so important, because it gives you that ability to fundamentally reduce the cost and increase the efficiency. Hybrid scenario. In the foreseeable future, we see that it's going to be hybrid. It's not going to be just public cloud, just private cloud. It's going to be private cloud expanded out, public cloud coming back. It's going to be a hybrid deployment. So any solution you architect, it better be able to take care of the hybrid scenario, which also means that single pane of glass management, that common management platform, that federation of identity is so important, so critical. That's your strategy. Right? Again, single pane of glass. You get a secure channel to your public cloud, secure channel to your private cloud, single pane of glass. There's a lot of great story coming out of Windows Azure. Even your IT pro, we need to stay on top of it. There's going to be great story coming out, right, in terms of how we can expand private cloud into public cloud in a really seamless manner. It's really very exciting. I can't wait until to make the announcement so I can talk about it. Right? I demoed this already. Right? That's your app controller. When we talk about private cloud, I show you VMM 2012. Why? VMM is a key component. It takes care of the application management, takes care of the infrastructure management. But make no mistake, there's really 3 categories we need to be concerned with. Application management, service delivery management, that give you that good user experience, and infrastructure management. Not only you need to have procedure, you have to script, you need orchestration. It's not just single thread, it's a multi-thread, right? Not only you need to make your UI look really nice, it needs to be self-service. If you break it down, it's application management, service delivery management, it's that workflow you need. That ticketing you need needs to integrate it in. And System Center 2012 give you different components to address the solution. That is the comprehensive cloud management solution that you have. So what's the key enabler technology for Microsoft Private Cloud? Active Directory as a base so we can get federated identity, ADFS, give a seamless SSO experience. Your virtualization solution needs to be Hyper-V based. That gives you the best integration, and certainly your management solution going to System Center 2012. So what have we learned in this session? We talked about what are services of the 532 or 534. Service is what? On demand, right? Let's try not to explain service with implementation, because once you get into that, you tunnel vision, and you rule out a lot of options which can be available. If you said, well, service is a set of code, you're talking about web service, right? You limit yourself. Service is really a state, an objective. It's a capacity on demand. That's what cloud computing is about. It's to make it readily available, not just readily available, but ready for you to use. Not just accessible, but ready, but the capacity. We talk about 532, 5 essential characteristics, 3 delivery method, 2 deployment model. Or you don't like my French accent, you say, I want to use 534, that's fine. That's supposed to be a joke, come on. All right. I talk about virtualization versus private cloud. Remember, virtualization is not private cloud. Private cloud have 3 of the 5 essential characteristics: resource pooling, electricity, self-servicing, and also the chargeback model. You need to bring this in when there's a possibility, when you have a chance. You need to architect it in so you have an agile solution. We talk about what service template. It's the XML file that captures everything, capture that 357 tasks to deploy that service for you. It's the content, it's the procedure, it's the operation, it's the intelligence. And in VMM 2012, service means that whole set of virtual machine that you're going to deploy, you can manage. And with the service template, not only we deploy the whole set of application architecture as IaaS, we also configure the runtime environment, make it a PaaS, followed by configure the application and deliver and present to your user as SaaS. That is really the beginning of IT as a service. You need the line of application, it's available. You need more, it's there. When you don't need it, get rid of it. Help yourself. It's a self-serving. It's a ubiquitous access. We talk about all that. The 5 implementation strategy: identity, federated identity, virtualization, common managed platform. What's the 4th? I forgot. But you know what I'm talking about, that 5 area. All right, I show you the single pane of glass. The important, you need to be able to manage not just bare metal, not just virtual machine, but private cloud and public cloud, because it's going to be hybrid. It's going to be hybrid. Right? System management focus, 3 big area: application management, service delivery management, and infrastructure management. When you architect a private cloud solution, make sure you address all the different area, ask the right question. And System Center 2012 have all these components to help you to solve the issues. Key enabling technology, remember Active Directory with Server 2000 R2SP1 Hyper-V as the virtualization platform, and then your System Center 2012 as a management solution. That's where you need to focus on so you can become the next private cloud expert in your organization. Your call to action. The first one is where you can get System Center 2012, one-stop shopping for you, aka.ms 2012. You also need to make sure you're running on 2000 R2SP1 and later. Free is one page I composed, have free ebook, have 2000 R2SP1, R2, not SP1, R2, free ebook, have Windows 7 deployment ebook, virtualization ebook, Windows Phone 7 application development ebook. That's all available. Whole bunch of poster, Hyper-V poster, it's all there. The all is my recommendation for those who want to be a private cloud expert. That's the reading I recommend. That's a resource I recommend you to go through. That's the hands-on level I think you should go through. It's all there. What this is about, you want to master Hyper-V. That's the base solution. You want to make sure you got your hands on it. When you have opportunity to deploy 2000 R2SP1, it will set you in a strategic platform that's good for whatever's upcoming. All your management should be System Center 2012 based. It's designed with the cloud in mind. And finally, whenever you talk about cloud, think hybrid scenario. I hope I provide you enough information and get you excited, and you can go home and become the next private cloud expert. That's the session, and I'll be happy to answer more questions if you have. Thank you very much. Please stay in the eval. Thank you.